Welcome to Women's Health Unwrapped with Nicola, a weekly show dedicated to empowering women to unlock the secrets of true health and vitality. Join us as we unwrap what healthy living really means with guest experts and real-life stories to help you get clear on the power of building sustainable, healthy habits without the overwhelm and confusion you feel right now. It's time to strip back and lay out the truth about why taking better care of yourself is the answer to the happy, vibrant life you're striving so hard to create. Hi, and welcome to our very first episode of Women's Health Unwrapped, to launch our rebrand of the podcast with our new name and focus on unwrapping healthy living for women to help all women know the value of their health and thrive in every life season, which includes menopause. We have a brilliant guest joining me today. We've got Naomi Holbrook, who's here to share her personal story of transforming her health when she believed it was impossible to change. So if you're struggling with your own health and feeling like it's just too hard, there's too much change required and it's going to be a very long, difficult, and maybe you're telling yourself an impossible journey, then I think this story might give you a lot of inspiration. Because when you dive into Naomi's story, through a conversation and share how she went from being clinically obese and pre-diabetic, having spinal surgery and challenges with mobility, struggling with extreme mental health, and now describing herself as healthier and happier than ever before. So welcome to the podcast, Naomi.
Thank you so much, Nicola. It's great to be here with you. And even you describing that then, I'm like, was that me?
I can imagine, yeah.
Lifetime ago.
Oh, well, before we dive into this story, I would just like to find out a bit about what you do now to support your health with what you think is your most impactful healthy habit.
Oh, great question. I honestly think movement. And when I say it doesn't matter what kind of movement, I'm not one of these coaches who sort of says, you need to go to the gym every day, or you need to do this, or you need to do this, but just moving with intention. So for me, I get out every single day and get steps in and walk out in nature, whether that's, up on the downs, whether it's by the seafront, whatever it might be. And I think that for me, that's probably a habit that has helped me so much, not just physically, but also mentally as well.
Oh, brilliant. And I'm with you on that as well. I think movement, it's just powerful in so many different ways, isn't it? And switching as well, which I'm sure will come up through the story you're going to share, when you switch your mindset away from feeling like you have to exercise and work out to moving, and as you said, being intentional with why you're doing it and how it makes you feel, then that's a real mindset shift and game changer for the benefit of it, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. I think, like you say, we, feeling that we have to do something, and we're seeing it almost as a bit of a punishment is so negative for our emotional well-being and our health, that it's much more important to do things that we enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back in time then and find out, what were you like? What was your health like? How did that feel? And what was going on for you in some of what I shared in the intro there?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, my health was poor from being a child. I constantly had chest infections, throat and ear infections, tonsillitis, bronchitis. I was born with scoliosis. So even in my young teenage years of 12, 13, I was put into neck braces, back braces, constantly seeing osteopaths, chiropractors. I think I had my first MRI scan at 14. So I had various different health things going on. Poor immunity in so much as constant respiratory problems, asthma, all those different things, but also real mobility issues with, a lot of back pain, a lot of neck pain. And really, it just continued throughout my teenage years, my 20s. But, I managed a career, did all those different things, but I hated physical exercise. I hated physical activity. And, I used comfort food and alcohol a lot in my 20s and my 30s to, soothe emotions, to block out trauma that I had sort of, as a teenager. And then at 34, my back was in a dreadful state, to the point that I had to stop driving. I had to stop going into my office. I had to sort of work from home for a period of time. I couldn't get up the stairs to go to bed at night. I used to have to sleep on the sofa. I was on a concoction of, highly addictive prescription medication, tramadol, which we know is a really addictive opioid. I was on different, sleeping tablets. My health was an absolute mess, and internally my mental and emotional health was a mess as well. So at 36, I ended up having major spinal surgery, a lumbar spinal fusion, a disc replacement. That was a bit of a wake-up call, but not quite enough of a wake-up call. So after surgery, I did change some things, but I went back to the old me and reverted back to type. And then, as you said at the beginning there, at 39, I had a successful career, but when I say I was a mess, on the outside, everybody saw this confident, independent career woman, but I was pre-diabetic. I was, 5.5 stone overweight, clinically obese. Mental health, depression, anxiety was just absolutely through the roof. And literally 4 days after my 39th birthday, I was just like, I cannot get to 40 and be like this. And I think for a lot of women, that jump from 39 to 40 feels quite significant. And it was like, I just cannot get to 40 and feel, well, I'm going to be honest, fat and frumpy and bloated and tired. And the state that my mental health was in was absolutely dreadful. So for me, that 39th birthday was an absolute turning point.
Wow. To have all of those health struggles from such a young age must have been really difficult. In one respect, maybe it helped you to be resilient because you were used to having them. You didn't know life without some of what you had, especially with the back problems. But then to have to navigate those for so long, that obviously took its toll. And do you think that had a big part to play in the lifestyle choices you made then through your 20s, which became, just habits and part of who you were?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting you say that, because the word resilience, it's something that really resonates with me. And I think I don't think, I know, I spent the best part of probably 25, 30 years in a survival state, and in that kind of flight and fight all the time, A, fighting different health conditions, B, trying to navigate a pretty busy and hectic full-time career, whilst also, in the background battling depression and anxiety and panic attacks. And I do think that maybe some resilience came from there, but it was tough. My schooling years were really difficult because I missed so many periods. I was off for such big periods of time, whether it was with chest infections, whether it was with, back problems, all sorts of things. And I do think, like you say, that, that sort of resilience probably grew in there. And I came to accept all of it. For years I said, I'm just an emotional eater. I'm a comfort eater. I put so many labels on myself because I just thought that that's who I was. And that was sort of part of my identity. And like you said, the behaviors and the habits that I created, a lot of them were survival techniques. They were, self-soothing techniques instead of understanding emotions that I was feeling from, losing my mum as a teenager. I just used food and alcohol to, cope with stress, to cope with anxiety, to celebrate, to commiserate. Food and alcohol just became literally like the go-to for me for every single occasion and every single situation.
Yeah, it's such a parallel in your story to my story. And how people would say, oh, I'm a comfort eater. When I'm stressed, I eat. or someone would say, you know, when I'm unhappy, I eat, or they eat to celebrate and reward. I do it all. You know, food it was just that mechanism, like what you're saying, to give you whatever that was, whether it was a positive reward and response, or whether it was something to soothe and comfort and make me feel better. And it's really hard when you're in that to see the damage that that's doing, isn't it? And you know, when you were eating like that and drinking alcohol and probably other poor lifestyle choices, you know, in your life as well, could you see what those things were doing, or were you just not aware of it at all? No.
Completely unconsciously aware, and I can
Mm.
only say that now because of where I am now, but I describe it like I was just sleepwalking through my life. I was, you know, I sometimes look back and think, gosh, how on earth did I, you know, have the career that I had? Because mentally I was just going through the same motions all the time. And I wasn't aware at all, and I certainly wasn't aware that I could change. I just, for so many years, accepted that this is who I am. I am just the poorly girl
Mm.
that is always sick, is always unable to go to the parties, unable to go to things because she's just not well enough. And yeah, I just wasn't aware of also, like you say, that what lifestyle choices were actually doing to, you know, doing to me physically and mentally.
Mm. And that label that you put on yourself is something very common as humans. That's what we do, isn't it? And because you had all of those, you know, illnesses and poor health challenges from a young age, as you say, you didn't know anything else, that you were that poorly girl, the child that was always ill and always had to take time off school and had something wrong with her. And that almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy as well, doesn't it? Because you've put that label onto yourself because that was who you were, but then that, and that label is such, you know, giving it a stamp and a label meant that that became who you were as well. So you played out that role of the ill girl, the ill woman, the person who wasn't in the best of health, and probably by the sounds of it added to some of what you were struggling with physically through, you know, as we say, those are the lifestyle choices and habits. And with the problem that you had with your spine and the mobility, how do you think that connected to the choices that you made around food and then overeating and putting weight on?
Yeah, it was a catalyst. I look back now,
Really?
and first of all, the medication that I was on, you know, high strength opioids, I was on sleeping tablets. They made me feel so lethargic and so fatigued that I didn't have the physical energy, but also I had so much. I mean, it's crazy. I look back now and think I was on all this high strength medication for pain relief, and yet I was still in so much pain. So, and then of course, you know, because back then I was an emotional eater and I was a comfort eater, my go-to when I felt low, when I had no energy, when I had pain, was food to soothe it. So, you know, ice cream, chocolate, biscuits, cake, whatever it might be. And then, of course, alcohol. So, you know, a glass of wine because it will just hopefully help me sleep a little bit better, and all those different things. But of course, I was so inactive that I wasn't really burning any calories, and I was seriously over consuming calories. And it just, you know, and you say there about that sort of, you know, self-fulfilling prophecy. It was just this cycle that just kept going on, you know, wake up feeling dreadful, move from the bed to the sofa for the, you know, obviously not on a day when I was working, but move from the sofa, from the bed to the sofa for the day, inactive, and then just again just kind of fueling that whole thing of, oh, I just have, you know, I just have something to eat because it'll make me feel better. And of course we know that makes you feel better for about 2 minutes, and then after that, of course, you know, it has such a negative impact. So yeah, it, food and alcohol at that time had a really, really negative impact, but it was like the only coping strategy I had. I didn't know any others.
Mm. And so that
point came where you were 39, you thought, right, I can't be like this next Thursday because it's a big milestone birthday, I'm going to be 40. But as you described, you were a mess emotionally and physically. You had a lot of things going on. So how did you begin? You know, what did that road ahead look like? And how did you support yourself to start making changes, and changes that have lasted and become now a part of who you are?
Yeah, well, I think the first important thing to say is that's 10 years ago, because I've just turned 49. And in those 10 years, my transformation, as you know, nothing is linear. It's gone like this, like this, like this. So what I would say is, if I was doing it different, if I was doing it all over again now, I would do everything the other way around. Because what I did was I started with the physical transformation. So what I saw in the mirror was this woman at 39 who was, really, really overweight, clinically obese. And so I started on the external rather than the internal. So I just, and I did basics. I didn't join a gym. I didn't do any of that. In fact, I used to go out after dark because I was so self-conscious about being in like a pair of leggings and a t-shirt. I'd covered up my weight pretty well in my career with, whether it was with black, whatever it was. But I felt really self-conscious going out and like moving, especially on my own. We all kind of hear those, horrible stories of women walking along and being jeered at. So I would only go out after dark. I'd go out after dark and literally just walk. And then that walk, the pace got a little bit more and it got a little bit longer and all that sort of thing. And then I made some really simple changes, because at that point, so much of the food that I was eating was processed. And now I know why, because it's so addictive and so palatable, and it is designed to make us keep wanting more and more and more of it. So I wasn't really making any homemade meals. Everything was, I was adding some vegetables to things, but everything was, a ready meal or out of a packet or frozen or a takeaway. And actually, I stopped drinking alcohol for 9 months after my 39th birthday. It wasn't a plan. I didn't say I'm going to give up alcohol, but I did know at that point that alcohol was a problem for me. And I only learned this terminology about 6 months ago, and that's grey area drinking. I'd never heard of it.
Yeah.
But I now realize that I was a grey area drinker. So I wasn't an alcoholic. I wasn't like waking up in the morning and thinking, oh my God, I need a drink. But I was having it the minute I got in from work. I was sometimes having it on the tube, on the train on the way home. I was going out for all these brunches and dinners with the girls at the weekend, and every single one was involving alcohol. And I just thought, I feel like I need to just get alcohol out of my life. So I actually stopped drinking for 9 months. That sounds quite drastic, but actually everything else that I did wasn't drastic. It was very simple. I just started to cook homemade meals and batch cook and freeze things. And instead of buying my lunch from Pret and going for, the most calorific toasted panini, I started to take my lunches into work. I started to prepare a breakfast to have on the train. It was just simple lifestyle changes, but they had a huge impact over, a year and a half. And, at the end of the day, a lot of those lifestyle choices have continued on and are what kind of keep me, as I am today.
Oh, brilliant. And as you started making those small changes, and as you said, you were focused on the physical transformation and wanting to look differently, did you then realise that you were feeling differently, and had your mental health improved?
Well, the irony is I felt better, I felt different, but I had this, and I think we spoke about this when we chatted before, I had this idea in my mind that when I get to a size 10, a size 12, everything will be perfect. Everything will be perfect in my life. And on my 40th birthday, I wore a fabulous size 10 jumpsuit, and I felt amazing externally and physically, but I didn't feel great internally. I didn't feel this level of confidence that I thought I would feel. And I was still having I called it anxiety then, but I now realize it was anxious thoughts. But I was still feeling these kind of levels of anxiety. And it wasn't until 2019, so actually 4 years later, that actually when I say I was forced to deal with the mental and the emotional side. In 2019, it was the 25th anniversary of my mum dying, and I had a breakdown. And even though physically I was in this fabulous place and all my friends thought, my God, you look amazing, you look the best, you get health and everything, but I hadn't dealt with any of the internal side of things. And it was only in 2019 that then that kind of like really hit me. And it was like, okay, now I need to really kind of rebuild and transform everything internally. So that's when I started to, look at old beliefs, behaviors, patterns, my emotional response to things, all those different things to really to sort of break some behaviors and habits that had been there for 30 odd years.
And that's what tends to happen, isn't it? Especially for people who have been successful with quite a significant weight loss, that becomes difficult to sustain because what they've done to achieve that weight loss hasn't dealt with those underlying habits that form your identity, that are who you are. And so inside, you're still that person that was overeating, that relied on food or whatever else is going on and sits, underneath in your subconscious mind and in those thought patterns and behaviors. And I think that contributes to why, only a small part, I would say, why the diet culture we have is the way it is, because people bounce from diet to diet to diet, going on diets don't work, it's too hard, but it's because they're missing that inner work, that real deep work, that is the behavior change. And, most people know really what they should be eating to eat healthy, maybe not, as well as what someone trained like you or I might know, but generally we know. But it's not easy to do because of what you do have going on inside with those belief systems and habits and behaviours that are a part of who you are. And our brain is so bloody powerful, isn't it? I mean, it's a magnificent organ and part of how we are as humans. But I think we appreciate and realise generally what the brain does and how, it's fight for survival, meaning that actually it wants to keep us where we've been and it doesn't want us to feel insecure and unsafe. And also, if you have lost a lot of weight, that can challenge things from a physical point of view as well, with the brain wanting you to be at that stable weight range. So when you had that breakdown, was it clear then that what was going on was linked to the changes you'd made in, making them a sustainable part of who you are? Or did that take some extra work? Was it only once you got started in doing that inner work that the pieces all came together?
Yeah. And I describe that, I sort of describe that now when women come to me and they're like, I must be broken. I'm a failure because I've never managed to achieve it sustainably and all this. And I say, you're not. I describe it as it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle that's fallen on the floor and you haven't got the picture. So you've got all the pieces, but you don't know where they're all meant to go. And that's now that I feel like the missing pieces of the jigsaw are in the right place, I understand so much about why I was never able to make sustainable change before. And you mentioned the word, their identity, and it's something I talk about a lot in my coaching, because my identity now is nothing to the identity of the person I was 10 years ago. And of course it evolves at each step and each stage, but that belief system is so empowering and will quite literally change our lives. So for me, it was definitely about getting the right pieces. But also I think, and like I said, the 10-year journey to get to where I am now, I would do it all differently, but actually you can't choose to do it differently. The whole point of it is that every part happens kind of when it's when it's meant to happen. So, you know, it's just an evolution of the journey. That's how it really sort of works.
But have you taken what you've learned through that 10-year journey and pieced it together into a framework that you think, you know, will help other people to do it
Yeah,
differently and better than what you did it originally? Yeah.
absolutely. I always joke with my clients when they come on board and I say, you're literally getting the fast track.
Yeah.
I've made all the mistakes. I've gone down every wrong path. I've stumbled. I've done all those things. And something that so many of my clients say to me, you know, when I'm like doing a coaching call or send them a message, they're like, how did you know I'd be feeling like that? Or that's just what I needed to hear today. And I'm like, I'm being on this journey. I know what the pitfalls are. I know how the brain works. I know the subconscious mind, all those different things. So yeah, I mean, and it's so, for me, it feels like such a gift to be able to pass on 10 years of, well, not even 10 years, because it's been, you know, years and years, decades
Yeah.
of emotional eating, yo-yo dieting, you know, all those different things to get to here. But it just feels like such a gift that I can pass those on and guide other women to not make all those mistakes over and over again, and actually start to, you know, to also get an approach that works in every area. Because like you said, it is about what we eat, but it's so much more about what we think and what we
Yeah.
say in our mind and all those different things. So if all we're doing is just changing our calories and our, you know, macronutrients, we're never going to get that long-term sustainable change, because it all comes from what's going on up here.
Exactly. So what would you say to someone listening to you is that person that's feeling stuck and that it's so, you know, hard to make changes? Like, what would be that bit of advice you'd give to someone knowing the mistakes that you made and what you've seen clients struggle with as well?
I think the biggest thing that women struggle with, and you know, and I'm sure that there are men that struggle with this too, but obviously predominantly I speak to so many women, is that we're always waiting to feel ready, or we're always waiting for the perfect moment. And there isn't one, and we're never going to be ready. And I see it so often with why women, you know, even friends who are like on a diet and then they fail, and it's because they're setting themselves up for the perfect day and the perfect scenario. And we know that life just isn't like that. So embrace the messiness, embrace the obstacles that you're going to come across, because they're going to be there. But I think so often, you know, we know this from an entrepreneurial journey. And I do often think that the entrepreneurial journey and the weight loss journey, there's so much that resonates. There's so much that aligns there, because you just need to take some action. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the perfect day or everything running smoothly at home. Just take some action. And one thing I always say with my clients is just 1% progress. 1% progress each day leads to huge results over a month, 6 months, a year, whatever it might be. So stop waiting to feel ready, stop waiting for the perfect day, and just take some action.
100%. As you say, it's those small changes that compound over time, that grow, become naturally a part of who you are, as those habits, that you're not having to remember to do something or not to eat something, or remembering you should go to the gym twice a week or whatever. It's about knowing every decision you make to feel better is going to make you feel better, no matter how small that thing is, whether it's that glass of water, the positive thoughts, the healthy home cooked meal, or the walk at the end of the day. It all adds up, doesn't it? And you're right in that we have this culture of kind of all or nothing, and I've spoken about this. I think I did a full podcast episode on this last year, and that's what often holds people back, that almost, you know, perfectionist outlook of, well, I have to do it all, otherwise what's the point? Because we see these celebrities who seemingly are doing it all when it comes to health. You know, they have the PT and the nutritionist at home on hand to cook whatever they want, and they've got home health and massage therapist and everything. And we think, well, we're never going to have all of that. So what difference is this little thing I'm going to do today going to make for me? And so we kind of resign ourselves to do nothing, which, as you've explained in your story, and I know from my health journey, has detrimental effects. It may take time, but it's the opposite way with the good things we're doing. That takes time, but will play out positively. And that's what we want. We don't want to hit that wall when it comes to our health, because it is so much harder to fix it when it's gone wrong, which is how things were for you, wasn't it?
And it feels like a mountain. And
Yeah.
I say so often, when you see that mountain, you get that kind of analysis paralysis where you just feel like you know, and that's why so many people feel stuck, is because it's like you just don't, you feel like you cannot put one foot forwards. It's like you're just in this place. And of course, we know that that's because we get into that fear zone, and we just, you know, again, our primitive brain is designed to keep us there and not to move out into growth and everything else. But yeah, we get paralyzed by not taking action.
Absolutely. So on that theme of action, for someone who wants to improve their health and wants to build new habits to live a healthier lifestyle, what would be 3 small steps to take to build a new habit? And I think you've given lots of brilliant advice, Naomi, but yeah, just 3 simple steps from your experience that can start to make you feel better quickly, so that you get that momentum and positive energy going.
Absolutely. I think the first one is definitely movement, because getting out in nature, you know, it increases our natural endorphins, increases our melatonin production, helps to lower cortisol, which we know obviously has, you know, a positive impact on helping with fat loss anyway. If we're in a high cortisol state, we won't burn fat. So I think the first thing to say is just get out and move your body. Don't be thinking about, you know, 10,000 steps or going to the gym. Just go out with the intention of moving your body. The second thing is hydration. And, you know, you said about water, and actually I'm a huge fan of electrolytes, and I drink electrolytes every single day. They've had a massive impact on my energy, my, you know, we wake up so dehydrated. And so many people spend the whole day drinking tea and coffee and squash and Diet Coke, and they don't put anything in that helps to rehydrate their brain or their body. So for me, electrolytes are an absolute sort of no-brainer. So movement, electrolytes, and what's the third one? I had something already on my mind to think about. Here we go. So often, the reason we put off making changes is because we fear what we're going to lose. And I'm pretty convinced that this is why, one of the reasons I put off my health journey for so long. I didn't want to stop drinking alcohol because I loved it. I didn't want to stop eating a curry Indian takeaway on a Saturday night with a tub of Haagen-Dazs because I really liked it. And actually, the irony is now I can go weeks without alcohol and I don't miss it. I don't crave it. I can take it or leave it. I can't remember the last time I had ice cream. I can't remember the last time I had a takeaway. So what I would say is, forget what you're giving up. You're not giving anything up. If you improve your life and you enhance your life, you haven't given anything up. You've gained. So even that, from just a mindset point of view, stop thinking about what you're giving up and start thinking about what you're gaining.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Yeah, you're so right. And that's, I think, what we work on with our clients, isn't it? Certainly at the beginning of my program, my framework begins with the why. Why do you want this change? And really attaching yourself to that vision and the way it feels to be that version of you want for the future. Because we do spend that time thinking, well, it's all right now. And yeah, but I like this Saturday night just with like you said, the tub of Haagen-Dazs, it used to be Ben& Jerry's for me. But not thinking about what it will actually feel like. And for me, a big vision and way that I go about my life is really thinking about how I'm going to stay when I'm 85 and I can drive my car and I can carry the shopping bags and travel with a little trolley bag if I want alone, and hopefully, pick up grandkids or great grandkids at that time. But really thinking about that, because I think we do get stuck in go, 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 do, survive, 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 and expect things to just be the way we want them in the future without knowing we're making that happen. It's a bit like with your pension. If you don't put into your pension throughout your working life and invest it, then you ain't going to have any money in your retirement. And it's the same with your health. If you overspend when you're younger, then you're not going to be healthy to live that life you want when you age. And so I love how you've put that together. That's a really nice little good tip. Thank you.
Not at all. And it's so funny you should say that about pension, because I literally had this conversation on a previous coaching call and said, what you do with your health today will impact your life in 5,
Yes.
10, 20, 30 years. And that's a really scary thought, because like you said, I think as human beings, human nature is we kind of live in the moment. We're not thinking about what we're doing right now, what we're eating today could impact our brain health in 5 years' time, 10 years' time. I know for me, the thoughts of dementia, of Alzheimer's is something that is a huge motivator even for me now, of nourishing my body. And like you say, investing in my health pension now, not leaving it too late, because so much of that cannot be reversed.
Oh, absolutely. And I've done episodes just on dementia and brain health as well with different guests. And, the research is showing with dementia, it's not an old age disease, it's a mid-age disease. We are starting to develop dementia in our 40s even, sometimes a bit younger, because of how we are living. So, yeah, I think that's a great way to help people reposition it and not to be afraid because of that. And I often say this, it's not about being morbid or negative and pessimistic, going, oh, well, you're getting old. It's reality, and it's more empowering than anything else, because you are taking control of your life, your health, and the happiness that you want. And that's what you've done for yourself, and look where you are now. So thanks so much. I really enjoyed the conversation. Like I say, lots of similarities in our journey, very different things happening to us, but that parallel with certainly mental health and anxiety and the emotional eating and weight loss and then that inner work. So to let people know where they can connect with you, I'll put everything into the show notes, but just let people know you've mentioned coaching, what you specialize in, and how they can find out more about you, Naomi.
Absolutely. So like you said, you're going to very kindly put the links in. So you'll be able to find me on Facebook, on Instagram, on my website. But obviously I have one-to-one programs where I work bespoke with ladies to really get to the bottom of those beliefs and those habits and those behaviors, and also group programs. But I also have, online courses as well to help with fat loss and just helping to educate as well, because one thing I really, really realize now with all the education I've done over the last 8 years in training in my field, is that I kept saying I knew what I needed to do. I just needed to do it. And I now realize that I knew so little. And I always love that phrase. You only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. And, one of my biggest passions is educating women to understand why, they've had the habits and behaviors that they have. So, yes, they can reach me on any of those different links.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. So, like I say, good luck with the future. I know you've just gone through a rebrand as well, so I wish you all the best with that. And I'm sure there's lots of takeaways in our conversation for people. And if you have listened, then maybe think about those 3 simple steps we've just given. And how can you start with one of those? And as you said, Naomi, earlier, just start really small. And I'm all about the small steps as well. So throwing that challenge out there to get thinking about your health and what you can use from this conversation to put something into that pension pot today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining today. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please remember to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. It would be massively appreciated if you could leave a rating and review to help other women discover the podcast and build their own healthy, happy life. If you're struggling with the changes perimenopause is bringing your way and you're ready to reclaim your vitality, to embrace this new chapter of your life with confidence and joy, then why not download our free guide, 10 Ways to Feel Good Again, your perimenopausal revival guide. Inside, you'll get 10 proven ways to enhance your well-being and rediscover the joy of living life to the fullest. And we all want to live a great life, don't we? So download your free guide now at lifenowcoaching.uk/feel good again. The link is in the show notes. You can follow Life Now Coaching on Instagram and LinkedIn and visit our website at lifenow.uk. All of the links are in the show description. I really hope you've enjoyed today's topic and conversation and can't wait to have you back again next week for more tips on living healthy and happy right now. Take care.